Have you ever felt like the world is against you, as if life itself conspires to remind you of your mistakes and shortcomings? You carry this quiet weight, replaying every slight, every disappointment, every injustice, and telling yourself that if the world were different, you could finally breathe. Most people assume that the solution is to change circumstances, to demand apologies, or to chase recognition, as though vindication could somehow untangle the knot of suffering inside. But what if that idea is entirely backward? What if the world isn't the thing holding you back at all? What if the tension, the anger, and the regret you feel are not signals of external failure, but invitations to look inward? You see, forgiving the world is not about condoning the pain or excusing those who have wronged you. It's about realizing that the narrative you've built around these events is what binds you, and that only by releasing the story can you uncover the life beneath it. It's a paradox. We search endlessly for validation, for justice, for the world to finally align with our desires. Yet the release we seek has nothing to do with anyone outside of us. The moment you stop insisting that the world owes you understanding, the moment you stop resisting what has already happened, you open a door to something far more profound, the quiet acceptance of yourself. Imagine, for a moment, setting down that heavy ledger of grievances and seeing yourself not as a victim of circumstance, but as a living, breathing being allowed to exist fully, even with flaws and regrets. It's not about weakness. It's not about surrender. It's about clarity. Every resentment you carry, every imagined slight has been a veil over your own heart. And what if I told you that lifting this veil, that choosing to forgive the world, is exactly how you reclaim the peace and freedom you have been chasing your entire life? If this message resonates with you, take a moment to subscribe, share, or leave a comment. By doing so, you are not just passing along words, you are helping other men, other seekers, find the same quiet liberation. You are joining a conversation that matters, one that reminds us all that life is still worth living, that freedom is possible, and that acceptance begins within. And as we move through this reflection, you will see how forgiving the world is not an act of weakness, but a radical step toward becoming the man you were always meant to be. For most of your life, you may have carried a ledger of every wrong done to you, cataloging insults, betrayals, and the countless ways the world seemed unfair. Each slight, each rejection, each disappointment has been a justification to tighten your defenses, to arm yourself against the possibility of further pain. You told yourself that remembering, resenting, and reacting was strength, that keeping score was necessary to survive. In this state, the world appears heavy, dangerous, and relentless, and you move through it with tension in your chest, suspicion in your gaze, and a lingering fear that any moment could bring another wound. You were convinced that survival demanded this constant vigilance, that life could only be navigated through armor and caution. Yet beneath this surface of caution, the very act of holding on has quietly stolen something essential from you. Your anger, your insistence on fairness, has kept you distant from the life that could have been yours. It has made you blind to the simple pleasures, the fleeting moments of connection, the laughter that could have softened your existence. You believed that by gripping the world tightly, by ensuring it could never hurt you again, you were in control, but in reality, you were enslaved. Every thought of revenge, every imagined correction of the past has been a chain, invisible yet binding, shaping your days with tension rather than freedom. Now consider a different possibility. What happens if you release this ledger, if you stop measuring the world against your expectations and stop demanding it bow to your sense of justice? Forgiving the world doesn't mean ignoring what was done to you. It means stepping out of the story where the world is the villain and you are the perpetually injured. It is in this space, strange and unfamiliar at first, that you meet yourself, not the self defined by pain and outrage, but the self beneath, unbroken by circumstance. In releasing the need to punish the world, you begin to reclaim your own heart. You begin to feel the weight lift, subtly at first, like sunlight slipping through the cracks of a darkened room. And as you do, life begins to transform around you. People may notice that you no longer carry the same tension, that your gaze is quieter, your words softer, your presence less reactive. Some may call it distance, others may call it strange, but in truth, it is the clarity of a man no longer controlled by grievances. Forgiving the world allows you to perceive life in its rawness, unfiltered by the endless commentary of resentment. You start to see that what once seemed like weakness, the willingness to let go, is actually power, that what once felt like loss, the surrender of your bitterness, is liberation. And with this liberation comes the first true taste of freedom, the intimate knowledge that your life is yours, not dictated by every slight or injustice the world has thrown at you. Think about the invisible agreements you've been participating in all your life, the subtle, almost unquestioned rules that tell you how to react, what to want, how to measure success, and how to judge yourself. Society teaches you to seek approval, to earn recognition, to define yourself through achievement and status, and even through grudges held against those who have wronged you. You were taught that keeping score, protecting your reputation, and maintaining control over how the world perceives you were essential to your survival. And so you did. You followed these unspoken laws faithfully, constructing a self that existed in constant negotiation with the world, constantly trying to ensure it never had power over you again. But these agreements are illusions. They are the scaffolding of a life built on fear, mistrust, and the expectation that the world must always align with your ideals. The truth is, the world owes you nothing. It never did. And the more you cling to it, demanding fairness or revenge, the more you bind yourself to the very thing you think you are resisting. By participating in this game, by insisting on your right to be treated as you feel you deserve, you are still enslaved to the patterns you despise. You are still caught in the same trap, believing that the world is the source of your suffering, when in reality, the source is the resistance inside you. The moment you stop participating in these agreements, when you choose not to measure yourself against the world's perceived injustices, something remarkable begins to happen. Anger softens without effort, resentment fades without reasoning, and the heart, long tense, begins to expand. Life becomes less about proving something or punishing someone, and more about simply existing fully in the moment. You start to notice the subtle textures of experience, the warmth of sunlight, the quiet rhythm of your breath, the gentle laughter of strangers or friends. Forgiving the world becomes not an abstract concept, but a lived reality, a continuous practice of letting go, of accepting life as it is, and most importantly, accepting yourself. Outwardly, people may misinterpret this transformation. Some will think you've grown cold, detached, or even arrogant because you no longer respond to the provocations and expectations that once dictated your behavior. Others may feel distant or puzzled by the calm certainty that now defines your presence. Yet inside, you are closer than ever to the truth of your own being. You are no longer fragmented by outrage, no longer chained to the whims of others, and no longer burdened by the invisible ledger of grievances. What once appeared as weakness, the willingness to release, is now unmistakable strength. The man who forgives the world is the man who finally stands fully, unafraid and whole, even if the world never applauds him for it. Consider the concepts you have long believed in: anger as strength, resentment as justice, loss as tragedy, and weakness as failure. You have been taught to hold on to these ideas, to treat them as truths, yet each one has been a subtle thief, stealing peace and clarity from your life. Anger convinces you that you are defending yourself, yet it erodes the self it claims to protect. Resentment whispers that the world is wrong and that you must correct it. yet it only reinforces the cage around your heart. Loss appears as the end, as emptiness, but in clinging to it, you miss the hidden gifts it offers: perspective, resilience, and the possibility of new beginnings. Weakness seems to mark you as less, yet it is precisely the openness to let go that reveals real strength. When you begin to forgive the world, these familiar concepts shift under your gaze. Anger dissolves into clarity, resentment transforms into understanding, loss opens the space for creation, and what you once saw as weakness becomes a source of profound power. You start to see that the life you feared, life without control, life without vengeance, life without constant judgment, is actually richer, freer, and more alive than anything you had imagined. Each old assumption, each rigid belief begins to bend, and suddenly the world does not appear as your adversary, but as a mirror reflecting your own judgments back to you. In seeing this, you are no longer bound to the narrative of victimhood. You step into authorship of your own life. This reinterpretation does not happen all at once. It unfolds in layers, subtle yet undeniable. You notice it in the small moments, the patience that replaces irritation, the calm that replaces tension, the subtle joy in ordinary experiences that once passed unnoticed. You feel a lightness in your chest, an ease in your movements, a quiet laughter that rises without reason. Others may not understand. They may even mistake your calm for detachment or indifference, for you are no longer feeding the illusions that once connected you to the expectations of the world. Yet inside, you are alive in a way you have never been before, experiencing a depth of freedom that cannot be measured by external standards. And as this freedom deepens, the tension between appearance and essence becomes clearer. You may look distant or strange to those who remain entangled in the old patterns, yet this distance is not isolation. It is the space necessary for growth, clarity, and authenticity. What was once a source of shame, the willingness to let go, to forgive, to release, is now the very manifestation of your power. The man who forgives is not weak. He is unshakable. He is not defeated. He is whole. He is not lost in a world that has wronged him. He has found himself, and in that discovery, he discovers the true meaning of living fully. As you continue to forgive the world, the consequences of this inner shift begin to ripple through every corner of your life. Outwardly, it may seem subtle at first. Your tone of voice softens, your reactions slow, your gaze carries a weightless confidence. People notice it, even if they cannot name it. Some may misinterpret this calm as arrogance or detachment, yet the truth is far deeper. You are no longer reacting to life from a place of fear or expectation. The compulsive need to correct, to defend, to prove yourself gradually falls away, leaving space for authenticity, for presence, and for clarity. Those who once held power over your emotions find themselves powerless, not through force or argument, but simply because you no longer grant them authority over your inner world. Inside, the transformation is even more profound. You begin to recognize the patterns that once controlled your thoughts and behaviors, and with this recognition comes liberation. Each resentment released, each imagined slight forgiven, becomes a brick removed from the walls you built around yourself. You experience a sense of expansiveness, as if the air inside your chest is lighter, fuller, freer. It is a quiet power, one that does not need to announce itself, yet its presence is undeniable. You move through the world not as a man seeking revenge or validation, but as a man who has returned to himself, who has reclaimed his right to exist fully, without apology, without fear, without the burden of carrying the world's faults on his shoulders. This transformation does not merely affect your inner peace, it touches every aspect of your life. Decisions that once felt heavy now arise naturally. Relationships that were strained begin to breathe. And work or ambition, once driven by the need for recognition, now flows from genuine interest and curiosity. The world may still act as it always has, unpredictable, indifferent, sometimes cruel, but its impact no longer defines you. You realize that the true measure of life is not in how the world treats you, but in how fully you inhabit your own experience. Every moment becomes a canvas, every encounter an opportunity to act from clarity rather than fear, and every challenge a chance to exercise the freedom you have claimed. And yet, this power carries a quiet paradox. The more fully you forgive and accept, the more you may feel isolated from those who remain entangled in resentment and blame. Some will misunderstand, some will question your motives, some may even attempt to pull you back into old patterns. But this is the cost of truth. The distance you feel is not rejection. It is the necessary space for a man to grow unencumbered, to move beyond the illusions that ensnared him, and to live in the reality of his own strength. What once seemed like isolation is actually clarity. What once appeared as weakness is in truth mastery. And what once looked like loss is now liberation, the freedom to be fully and unapologetically yourself. By now, the transformation has taken root at every level of your existence. You are no longer defined by the world's judgments or by the narratives you once clung to. The man who was once restless, reactive, and burdened by invisible chains now walks with a quiet certainty, a presence that does not demand attention but commands respect simply through authenticity. Life is no longer a battleground where you measure yourself against the failures and slights imposed by others. It is a landscape in which your choices, your awareness, and your acceptance shape every step. Each day brings subtle revelations, moments of stillness that were once overlooked, interactions that flow naturally without the weight of expectation, and a newfound ability to meet challenges with clarity rather than tension. Externally, this shift manifests in ways both visible and invisible. People may remark on the calm in your demeanor, the steadiness of your gaze, the ease with which you navigate situations that once provoked anxiety or anger. Some may feel unsettled by your independence, by the freedom that radiates from a man who no longer seeks approval or revenge. Others may be drawn to you, sensing that there is a depth and honesty to your presence that they have not encountered before. Yet the greatest change is internal. The constant noise of resentment, the obsession with what the world owes you, and the relentless self-criticism have all diminished, replaced by a spacious awareness that allows you to fully inhabit each moment and encounter life with openness rather than armor. This is the true power of forgiving the world. It is not a surrender to injustice, nor is it a passive resignation. It is an active reclamation of yourself, a conscious choice to release the narratives that have bound you and step into the full experience of living. What once appeared as weakness, the decision to let go, the refusal to engage in old battles, is now the defining strength of your character. You are no longer fragmented by past injuries or future anxieties. You are whole. And as you move through the world, unburdened by the need for validation or retribution, you discover that freedom is not a distant ideal, but a present reality, quietly waiting for those willing to embrace it. In this clarity, every experience transforms. Pain is no longer a trap, but a teacher. Failure is no longer a mark of inadequacy, but a guidepost. And even solitude is no longer loneliness, but an intimate companion that allows you to know yourself fully. The paradox is complete. What once seemed like isolation has revealed itself as the profound clarity of being. What seemed like weakness has become power, and what looked like loss has unfolded into liberation. Through forgiving the world, you have not only accepted life as it is, but you have finally accepted yourself. And in this acceptance, the man you are now stands complete, unshaken, and ready to face life with the wisdom that only such a journey can bestow. Now, as you reflect on this journey, you see the paradox in full. What once seemed like isolation was the clearing where clarity could grow. What appeared as weakness, the act of letting go, was the birth of true strength. What looked like loss, the surrender of grievances and old scores, has become liberation. You are not diminished by the world's injustices, nor are you incomplete because life did not unfold as you once demanded. On the contrary, by forgiving the world, you have reclaimed the most essential part of yourself, the freedom to be fully present, fully aware, and fully alive. Each breath, each thought, each encounter now carries the quiet power of a man who is whole, unchained from the illusions that once ruled him. Outwardly, people may still misread you. Some will see distance, indifference, or even strangeness. Yet inside, there is no fear, no resentment, no longing for approval, only presence. You have moved beyond the need to control the world or justify your existence, and in doing so, you have discovered the profound peace that comes from being at home with yourself. The man who once measured life in slights and wrongs now measures it in moments, in awareness, in the subtle joy of simply existing. What others perceive as detachment is in reality a radiant freedom, a life lived in alignment with truth rather than illusion. And so this is your invitation, to carry this reflection into your own life, to notice where you are still bound by grievances, to see where the world has become a mirror of your own expectations rather than a partner in experience. Forgive the world, not because it deserves it, but because you deserve yourself. By letting go, you step into a life that is deeper, richer, and more alive than anything you could have grasped through anger or resentment. You become the man who walks unshaken, who faces life with quiet courage, and who experiences freedom not as a distant dream, but as a present reality. If this reflection resonates with you, take a moment to subscribe, to share it with someone who may need to hear it, and to comment with your own thoughts or experiences. Every comment enriches this conversation and reminds us that none of us walk this path entirely alone. In choosing to forgive, you do more than release the world. You affirm your own life, your own presence, and your own strength. And in that affirmation, the man you have become is no longer merely surviving. He is fully alive, fully free, and finally at peace.